My bride gave her bridesmaid a key to my house without asking, so I changed the locks and dropped off her dress at her mom's house. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and I've been planning my wedding for a year with my fiancée, Emily. To say I'm a bit of a perfectionist is probably an understatement. I like my life organized, my home kept in order. Some would say I like control, but I call it structure. My home has always been my sanctuary. It's my space to relax, to think, to be myself. The thought of sharing that with someone who doesn't understand my boundaries, well, it didn't sit right with me, but I didn't think much of it at first. Emily's best friend Rachel has always been a little too involved in our wedding planning. I get it. She's the maid of honor, but she's always been around. From the moment we announced our engagement, Rachel was right there, volunteering opinions, making suggestions, and, sometimes, just inserting herself where she didn't need to be. At first I brushed it off. She was Emily's best friend after all. It's natural, right? But then the snide comments started. Little things that felt unnecessary. I remember one time we were all sitting at the dining table discussing flower arrangements. Rachel looked over at the way I had my bookshelf set up in the corner of the living room and made a face. "You know," she said, "you should really lighten up your space. It's kind of cold, don't you think? You don't have to control every little thing." It was the first time I felt that creeping discomfort, like someone was questioning my home, my safe place. I tried to laugh it off. "Yeah, I'm a little particular," I said. But deep down, I knew something was off. I should have paid more attention to that moment. But I didn't. I didn't realize it at the time, but that was just the start. And that's the thing with red flags. Sometimes you don't see them until it's too late. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a blur of decisions, disagreements, and an overwhelming number of tasks that seemed to pile up faster than we could handle. But it wasn't just the wedding planning that was stressful, it was everything else around it. And Rachel. Well, Rachel was everywhere. It started small, like when she'd pop over to help with things, even when Emily and I hadn't asked for it. I'd come home from work to find Rachel in our living room, sitting on the couch with Emily, eating pizza and flipping through bridal magazines. I didn't mind at first. I figured it's all part of the pre-wedding madness. But then, one day, I came home early and saw Rachel in the kitchen, rooting through my fridge. She wasn't just grabbing something to eat. She was rearranging things, cleaning out leftovers, tossing stuff in the trash like she lived there. "Hey, what are you doing?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm but already feeling a pit in my stomach. "Oh, I thought I'd make space for some of the stuff Emily wanted for the wedding," she said casually, not even looking up from the fridge. It was like a slap in the face. She didn't ask. She didn't need to be there. But it wasn't the first time something like this happened. A few days later, I found her in the living room, lounging on my couch, watching Netflix. Her feet were propped up on the coffee table like she owned the place. "Rachel, you can't just come over whenever you feel like it," I said, keeping my tone neutral. She shot me a playful smile, but I could see a flicker of annoyance in her eyes. "I'm just helping. Calm down." Calm down? This wasn't about calming down. This was about respect, but Emily didn't see it that way. Every time I brought it up, she defended Rachel, saying she was just trying to make things easier. "It's wedding stress, babe," she'd say. "Just relax. Rachel's been a huge help." But I wasn't relaxed. Not anymore. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew this wasn't just about wedding planning anymore. It was about boundaries being crossed, slowly, steadily, until they no longer existed. I don't know when it happened, but it was like one day, everything just became clear to me. Emily wasn't seeing what I saw, or maybe she just didn't care. But I couldn't ignore it anymore. Rachel's presence in my life was no longer a minor inconvenience. It was a full-on invasion. It started innocently enough. One evening, after a long day of wedding planning chaos, I returned home from work to find a small envelope lying on the kitchen counter. It had my name on it, written in Emily's familiar handwriting. I opened it, expecting something wedding-related. But what I found inside wasn't a list of tasks or reminders. It was a key to our house. I stared at it for a long time, the cold metal of the key feeling heavier in my palm with every passing second. "Emily?" I called out, my voice shaking slightly. She walked in from the other room, looking surprised to see me standing there staring at the key. "Oh yeah, that's the spare key. I gave it to Rachel," she said casually, as if this was just another detail of the wedding planning. My stomach dropped. "You gave Rachel a key to our house without telling me?" I felt the anger rising, a burning heat spreading through my chest. She shrugged, her face softening with a mixture of guilt and indifference. She's been so helpful with everything, and I thought it'd make things easier for her. You know, so she can come and go as she pleases, help with stuff around the house, set things up. You get it. I felt like I was suffocating. "This isn't okay, Emily. You can't just give someone, anyone, a key to our home without asking me first. This is my space, too." She looked taken aback, as if she didn't fully grasp the gravity of the situation. "It's just Rachel," she said, trying to downplay it. "She's your friend too, you know." "No, Emily, she's not my friend. This is my house. I don't know how many times I need to say it before it finally clicks." Emily was silent for a moment, then sighed, brushing it off as if it were a minor disagreement. "You're overreacting," she muttered, but the words stung like salt in a wound. I didn't know what to say. I was hurt, deeply. Not just because Rachel had the key, but because Emily didn't understand how violating that was. In her eyes, Rachel was always right. I put the key back down on the counter and walked out of the room, unable to look at her any longer. That was when I realized how much I had let slide. The signs were there, clear as day, and I had ignored them, hoping it would get better. But it wasn't going to get better. It was going to get worse, and I had to do something about it. Before it went any further. But what? What could I do that would finally make Emily see? The thought weighed heavily on my mind. I didn't have the answer yet. But something inside me was changing, and I knew that change was coming fast. I was done being the passive one, the one who always gave in. Rachel had crossed a line, and now, so had Emily. And it was time for me to take control of this mess. The days after I found out about the key felt like I was walking through a fog. I didn't want to talk to Emily. I didn't want to fight, but I couldn't let it go. The silence between us was suffocating, and it was becoming clear that the more I tried to bury my feelings, the worse everything would get. I needed to confront her. I couldn't keep pretending that I wasn't bothered by the fact that Rachel had a key to our house. Our house. One night, after another long day of wedding madness, I asked Emily to sit down with me. We sat at the kitchen table, and for a moment the stillness between us felt so thick it was like we were strangers. The house felt so cold. It wasn't the first time we'd argued, but this one felt different. This time, I wasn't letting her brush it off. "Emily, we need to talk," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "About Rachel. About what happened with the key." She looked at me, her face hardening slightly, but she didn't say anything. I wasn't sure if she knew how serious I was about this conversation, but I wasn't going to back down. "I'm tired of feeling like I'm not being heard," I continued, staring straight at her. "You gave Rachel a key to our house without even asking me. Without even telling me." Emily's eyes flashed with frustration. "Oh, come on, this again? It's not a big deal, she's just helping out." "You're being ridiculous." "Ridiculous," I repeated, my voice rising now, and for the first time I didn't care about being the calm, collected fiancé. "It is a big deal. It's my home, Emily, and I don't feel comfortable knowing that Rachel, someone who clearly doesn't respect my boundaries, has access to it whenever she wants." She huffed, crossing her arms. "I don't see the problem. You're blowing it out of proportion. She's my best friend and I trust her. What's the harm? That's the problem." I shot back. "You trust her more than me. You're choosing her over me. Again and again. And I'm getting sick of it." Emily's face twisted, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something that looked like guilt. But instead of addressing what I had just said, she snapped, "Why are you making everything about control? It's not like Rachel's doing anything wrong." I felt the frustration building up inside me, but I forced myself to stay grounded. I was done with this. Done with the way Rachel was allowed to push boundaries. Done with Emily making excuses for her. It's not about control. It's about respect. And right now, I don't feel respected. You've let Rachel make herself at home here, and I've had enough. The silence that followed was suffocating. Emily didn't respond. She just stared at me, and I realized that the words I'd been holding inside for so long weren't just about Rachel. They were about something bigger. I had spent so much time trying to make Emily see my point, trying to compromise. But the reality was, I was the one who was always compromising. I was the one who had been giving in for so long that I didn't even recognize myself anymore. Emily finally stood up, her voice low but sharp. "You're overreacting." "You need to calm down." I shook my head. "I'm not overreacting. You just don't get it. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe we're not on the same page anymore." Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I saw something in them. Something cold, calculating. "So, what? You're just going to throw everything away? Just like that?" I stood up, my hands clenched by my sides. "I'm not throwing anything away, Emily. But if you're not willing to put me and our relationship first, then maybe I'm the one who needs to make a choice." She took a step back, her face flushed with anger. "So what, you think it's me or her? You really think that's what this is?" "Maybe it is," I said, my voice steady, though the weight of the words hit me like a punch. "Maybe it is." And just like that, the air between us shifted. The fight wasn't just about a key anymore. It was about trust, about boundaries, and about something much deeper. I could feel the walls between us growing taller, but for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was the only one who had been holding them up. But even as the conversation ended, I knew it wasn't over. This wasn't something we could just argue through and forget. Not this time. And somehow, I felt like the real storm was only just beginning. And as I left the room, the quiet feeling that had settled over me moments earlier was replaced with something else. The sound of an inevitable crash coming closer and closer. The days after our confrontation were a whirlwind. Emily and I barely spoke, but when we did, it was filled with tension. The silence between us was like a heavy weight pressing down on everything. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that we were standing on the edge of something we couldn't undo. I tried to focus on the wedding. I really did. I tried to push the growing unease to the back of my mind, but it was impossible. Every time I saw Emily, all I could think about was how she had sided with Rachel, how she hadn't once stood up for me or my boundaries. It ate at me, but I didn't know how to fix it. Then, one afternoon, everything came crashing down. I was at work when I received a message from my neighbor, Carl. His text was short but made my heart race. "Saw Rachel going in your house again. Just wanted to let you know." I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. It wasn't a surprise, but it was the final straw. I had known deep down that Rachel would keep doing what she was doing, pushing boundaries, showing up uninvited, thinking she had some right to be there. But the fact that she had done it again after everything felt like a personal attack. I couldn't wait any longer. I left work early and rushed home, my mind a whirlwind of anger and frustration. When I stepped through the front door, my stomach dropped. The house felt different, off. The air was thick, and I could feel the weight of it pressing on me. I found Rachel in the living room, sitting on the couch like she owned the place, her feet up on my coffee table. She didn't even flinch when I walked in, just looked up at me with that familiar infuriating smirk on her face. "Hey," she said casually as if nothing was wrong. "I thought I'd stop by and help with the final touches for the wedding. You know, Emily's really stressing about the seating chart." I couldn't believe it. The audacity. "Rachel," I said, my voice colder than I intended. "I need you to leave. Now." She raised an eyebrow, surprised by the edge in my tone. "What? I'm just here to help. I'm not doing anything wrong." "You're doing plenty wrong." I snapped, my anger bubbling to the surface. "This is my home, and you have no right to be here, especially after everything that's happened." Rachel stood up slowly, as if to test my resolve. "You're being dramatic. We're just trying to help, Emily and I." "No, you are trying to take over my life. You think you have some right to come and go as you please, but you don't, and I'm done letting this go." Rachel's smirk faded, replaced with a look of defiance. "Well, fine. But don't come crawling to Emily when you ruin this whole wedding." "I'm not the one ruining things, Rachel." I shot back, my voice steady. "It's already ruined." With that, I turned and walked away. I didn't want to look at her anymore. I didn't want to be in that house, the house that felt like it was slowly slipping out of my control. When Emily came home later that evening, I didn't even need to say anything. The tension between us was palpable, the cracks in our relationship now too wide to ignore. She walked in, saw me sitting in the living room, and immediately started, "What did you say to Rachel?" "I told her to leave," I said flatly. "She's my best friend." Emily shot back, her voice rising. "You can't just kick her out like that." "I can," I said, standing up, my voice growing stronger. "You've let her walk all over us. You've let her treat me like I'm nothing, and I'm done." The silence that followed felt deafening. Emily's face was flushed, her lips trembling with the words she wanted to say. But she didn't speak. She just stared at me, as if she didn't recognize me anymore. In that moment, I realized something. I wasn't angry with Rachel anymore. I was angry with myself. I had let this happen for too long. I had let Emily and Rachel push me around, let them take over my life. I was angry that I had been so passive, so willing to let things slide, but not anymore. I was done. And as Emily finally spoke, her words felt like a punch to my gut. "If you can't handle me and Rachel, maybe this wedding isn't a good idea anymore." That hit me like a ton of bricks. It wasn't just about Rachel anymore. Emily was questioning us, and in that moment I knew I couldn't fix this. Not like this. Not with her still choosing Rachel over me. The weight of everything hit me all at once. I had hit rock bottom. My relationship, my home, my life. It was all slipping through my fingers, and I didn't know if I could ever get it back. The days after Emily's words hung in the air like a dark cloud. Maybe this wedding isn't a good idea anymore. Those words reverberated in my mind, refusing to fade. It felt like the ground beneath me had cracked open, swallowing everything I thought I understood about our relationship. I wanted to scream, to throw something to make this all go away, but I didn't. Instead, I went silent. I wasn't sure if I was giving Emily space or if I was just too tired to fight anymore. So, I let her have her time, her space, while I thought about what I'd just heard. I thought about the last few months, about the wedding, about Rachel, about all the ways I'd let myself be dragged along without ever really questioning it. But now, everything was different. Rachel had crossed a line when she thought she could waltz into my house, but it wasn't just her. Emily had allowed it, even encouraged it. I had been the one trying to keep the peace, to smooth over everything, to stay the good guy, the patient fiancé. But it hadn't worked. I was tired. I spent the next few days running through everything in my head. Emily's dismissals, Rachel's smugness, the way Emily kept letting her take over. The more I thought about it, the more I realized. I had to do something drastic, something that would make it clear where I stood. And I couldn't do it for Emily. I had to do it for myself. So I went to the hardware store and bought a new set of locks. I wasn't sure if this was the right move, but I couldn't keep living like this. It wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about me. It was about my boundaries, about regaining control over a life that felt like it had been taken over. That evening, when Emily was out with her mom, I changed the locks on the house. It was quiet work, no fanfare, no confrontation. I just locked the doors behind me, installed the new deadbolts, and slid the old key into the drawer. No more Rachel. No more feeling like an outsider in my own home. I texted Emily a simple message. "I've changed the locks. Rachel doesn't need a key to our home anymore." It wasn't dramatic, but it felt like the most powerful thing I had done in months. For the first time in ages, I felt like I was in control of something. Anything. When Emily came home that night, she was quiet. Her eyes immediately scanned the door, then the new locks. The tension between us was thick. She said nothing. The silence was louder than any argument we could have had. It felt like a turning point. I knew it would hurt her. I knew it would create a rift between us that might never heal. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of that. The fear of losing her was nothing compared to the fear of losing myself. Emily stood in the doorway for a long time, looking at the locks, then back at me. Finally, she spoke. "You've gone too far." I just shrugged, indifferent. "I'm done asking for permission, Emily. I need respect in this house. If you can't give me that, then maybe we don't need this wedding after all." The words hit like a slap, but they didn't sting the way I thought they would. I wasn't sure what would come next, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't backing down anymore. I had drawn a line, and if she couldn't see it, then that was her problem. But I wasn't finished yet. There was still one more thing to do. I grabbed the garment bag from the closet, the one with Emily's wedding dress, and without a word, I headed to her mom's house knowing that this would be the final straw. It wasn't about punishing her. It was about reclaiming my peace. And in a way, it felt good to take that power back, even if it meant walking away from everything I thought I wanted. I dropped the dress off on her mom's doorstep, the bag holding our future in my hands. I didn't wait for a response. I just walked away, feeling the weight of the dress slip from my shoulders as I walked back to my car. It wasn't over yet, but the silence was already growing louder. And I knew, whatever came next, I had made the choice for me. The days following the dress drop-off felt like a slow-motion collision. Everything around me was falling apart, but in a way, it felt almost surreal, like I was watching someone else's life implode while I stood helplessly on the sidelines. Emily didn't call, didn't text, didn't even acknowledge what had happened. It was as if, by removing the dress, I had removed a part of her too. But then the messages started pouring in. At first, it was just one or two texts from mutual friends asking if I was okay. Then they became more insistent, more demanding. I ignored them. I couldn't deal with it, not yet. It wasn't until my mom called that I knew the shit had hit the fan. "What have you done, son?" she asked, her voice shaking with a mix of worry and confusion. "Your father's been talking to Emily's parents, and now they're all upset. Emily is beside herself." I was numb. I didn't want to hear about Emily's tears, her family's anger. I wasn't the one who had betrayed her. I wasn't the one who had let Rachel take over my life. "I didn't do anything, Mom," I said, my voice flat. "I just set some boundaries. Something that should have been done a long time ago. But my mom wasn't having it." "Boundaries?" she repeated, as if she couldn't quite grasp the concept. "She's your fiancée, for God's sake. You're not supposed to treat her like this. You're supposed to support her, not humiliate her." I felt a pang in my chest, but I didn't let it show. I'm not humiliating her. I'm just standing up for myself. If that's too much for her, then maybe we weren't meant to be. My mother sighed, her disappointment like a weight pressing down on me. "This isn't the way to handle it. You're tearing the family apart. Emily's mom is furious with you. They all think you've gone too far." I closed my eyes, breathing deeply, trying to keep my cool. It felt like everyone was against me. Emily's family, my family, everyone except me. And for a moment I wanted to give in, to apologize, to fix everything and make it right again. But then I remembered that this wasn't about them. It was about me. I couldn't keep living my life pretending to be the guy everyone wanted me to be, the one who swallowed his pride and his boundaries just to keep the peace. I had tried that for too long, but when I finally hung up the phone, the weight of the situation hit me all at once. Emily's family wasn't just upset, they were angry, and they were pulling everyone in with them. The texts kept coming, this time from Emily's mom. "You've ruined everything. You can't just throw away years of love for some silly pride issue." And then from Rachel, "You don't deserve Emily if you can't even trust her best friend. You're controlling and paranoid. The last one stung. I had never been controlling. I had been the one to lose control over the situation, letting things go too far for too long. But they didn't see it that way. They saw me as the villain in their little fairy tale." It didn't help that Emily wasn't speaking to me. She refused to answer my calls. She wouldn't even respond to my messages. I was alone. In the house I once felt so comfortable in. The house that was supposed to be my sanctuary, now it felt like a prison. No one understood. Not my mom, not Emily, not her family. I was the one who had done something wrong, but all I had done was protect myself from people who didn't seem to care about my feelings. For the first time, I thought about leaving, walking away from all of it. The wedding, the family, everything. It felt like that was the only way to find peace. But I couldn't bring myself to leave. Not yet. Because something inside me told me that the end wasn't here yet. The storm wasn't over. As I sat in the living room scrolling through the angry messages, something shifted inside me. I wasn't going to let this break me. But I was done pretending like everything was fine. If they wanted to blame me, then so be it. But I wasn't going to be the one to apologize first. For once, I was going to stand my ground, and I wasn't going to back down. Not this time. I woke up the next morning to the familiar sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand. It was like a reflex now. Reaching for it, unlocking it, knowing it was going to be more of the same. But this time, it was different. There were more messages, yes, but they weren't from Emily or her family. They were from friends, my friends, telling me that Emily was at her mom's house, crying, and that everyone was saying I was the one who needed to apologize. At first, I wanted to call her. I wanted to fix it. I wanted to reach out and tell her that I didn't want this to be the end, that I still loved her, that I was willing to work through it. But as I sat there, staring at the messages, I realized something. I had already apologized. Over and over again in ways that didn't count. I had apologized for needing space, for having boundaries, for wanting my own life to be respected. And every time, it had been brushed aside. I rubbed my eyes and sighed, feeling a strange kind of numbness washing over me. It wasn't anger I was feeling anymore. It was something colder, something harder. It was clarity. I could finally see everything for what it was. I'd given Emily everything I could. I had fought to hold our relationship together, to be patient, to let Rachel's overstep go for the sake of peace. But peace wasn't what I had. It was control. It was manipulation. It was her family's need to make me the villain so they could paint themselves as the heroes in this twisted story. And Emily. She had been so wrapped up in trying to keep everyone happy that she hadn't even seen what she was doing to me, to us. And so I made a decision. A cold, rational one. I wasn't going to be the one to beg for her back. I wasn't going to apologize when I wasn't the one who had crossed the line. If Emily couldn't see that, then maybe this wasn't the life I wanted. I stood up and walked to the closet, pulling Emily's wedding dress out of its garment bag. It was heavy in my hands, the weight of a future I wasn't sure I wanted anymore. I stared at it for a long moment. The dress, once a symbol of the life we were supposed to build together, now felt like a chain, binding me to a lie. I grabbed my car keys and headed out the door. My hands were steady, but my heart was racing. I knew what I was doing, knew how it would hurt her, but I didn't care anymore. I had to do this for me. When I arrived at her mom's house, there was no dramatic confrontation. No tears, no yelling. Just me, walking up to the door and placing the wedding dress on the front porch with a note attached. You can return the key along with my piece. I didn't wait for her to come outside. I didn't need to see the look on her face. I just turned around and walked back to my car, the sound of my footsteps echoing in the quiet. I didn't feel relieved, but I didn't feel weighed down either. It was like I had made a choice for the first time in a long time. A choice that wasn't about anyone else's happiness. It wasn't about Emily or Rachel or her family. It was about me. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty for wanting something that was just for me. I didn't look back as I drove away, but as the house disappeared in the rearview mirror, I felt a strange kind of finality settling in. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. The next few days felt like a strange, suspended reality. I went through the motions, work, meals, sleep, but it all felt distant, as if I was watching it all unfold from behind a foggy window. There was no word from Emily. No calls, no texts, no frantic apologies or begging to fix things. It was like I had disappeared from her life completely. And honestly, I wasn't sure how I felt about that. It wasn't until the third day that the floodgates really opened. The calls started coming in, first from Emily's mom, then from mutual friends, and eventually, even from my own family. Everyone was upset. Everyone was blaming me. "What are you thinking? You can't just walk away from Emily like that," my mom said, her voice full of shock. "You've been together for so long. Do you really want to throw all of that away?" The thing is, I didn't want to throw anything away. I just wanted to be seen, to be heard. I wanted to feel like I mattered in my own life. in my own home. But instead, Emily had surrounded herself with people who saw me as a problem, a roadblock to their ideal vision of her life. I was just the one who had to do all the compromising. But when I tried to explain that to my mom, she didn't get it. "You're being selfish, son," she said. "You should be apologizing to Emily. She's devastated." And that's when I realized. They didn't get it. They couldn't see what I saw. They didn't understand how manipulative Rachel had been, how Emily had always chosen her over me, how I'd spent years walking on eggshells to keep the peace. No one saw the slow erosion of my self-respect, my boundaries, my life. I had always been the one who kept things together, who didn't rock the boat, who put up with everything. But now, I was the one being vilified for doing something that should have been my right, standing up for myself. I turned my phone off for a while, not wanting to listen to the same arguments over and over again. I needed space. I needed to think. But when I finally checked my messages later that night, there was one that caught my eye. It wasn't from Emily or her mom or anyone else in her family. It was from a mutual friend, Sarah. I don't know if you're going to like hearing this, but Rachel has been telling everyone that she's the one who's been handling everything between you and Emily. She's been telling people that you're controlling and paranoid, and now Emily's convinced that you're the problem. I stared at the message for a long time, the weight of it sinking in. Rachel had been playing this game for months, maybe even longer. She had been the one pulling the strings, the one pushing Emily away from me, twisting things to her own advantage. And Emily? She had bought into it. She had let Rachel manipulate the situation, let her tell her what to do, let her drive a wedge between us. I wasn't just losing Emily, I was losing the person I thought I knew, the woman I was about to marry, the one who had said she loved me. But I wasn't sure she had ever truly seen me, not really. And then it hit me. The betrayal wasn't just about the key or the house or Rachel. It was about everything that had been building up. The way Emily had always turned to Rachel for support. The way she had allowed Rachel to get too involved, to take over parts of our lives without even realizing it. It wasn't just a fight over a key. It was about how little Emily had fought for me. The realization was like a slap across the face. This wasn't just some misunderstanding that could be fixed with a simple apology. This was deeper than that. This was about trust, and at this point, it felt like all of it had been shattered. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but I knew one thing. I couldn't go back to the way things were. Not anymore. And then I saw it. Another message popped up on my phone, this time from Emily. "I need to see you. Can we talk?" For the first time in days, I hesitated. I had been preparing myself to move on, to let go of everything I thought I knew. But part of me still wanted to believe in her, in us, still wanted to fix things. I stared at the screen for a long time, my thumb hovering over the reply button. What could I even say to her now? Then I typed back, "What's there to talk about?" I sent it before I could stop myself, and just like that, everything felt like it was slipping away. I didn't know what was coming next, but I had a feeling that the story wasn't over yet. The message sat on my screen, unanswered for what felt like hours. My stomach was in knots and my mind was racing. Emily's request to talk echoed in my head, but I wasn't sure what to expect. What could she possibly say that would fix what had already been broken? What could she say after everything that had happened? After Rachel? After the key? After the wedding dress on her mom's doorstep? I sat there in the dim light of my living room, staring at the screen, wondering if it was worth the emotional toll to even respond. I knew this wasn't a simple conversation anymore. This wasn't about fixing a few misunderstandings. This was about trust, about boundaries that had been trampled on for so long that they didn't exist anymore. Finally, I gave in. I tapped out a response. "I don't know what there is to talk about. You've made your choice, Emily." My finger hovered over the send button. I almost didn't send it, but deep down, I knew it was the truth. She had made her choice. She had chosen Rachel over me, over us. Seconds later, my phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with her reply. "Please, I'm sorry. I know I messed up, but we need to talk. I can't fix it over text." I stared at those words. She was sorry. She knew she had messed up. But was that enough? Was an apology enough to undo everything that had happened? To fix the way Rachel had inserted herself into every aspect of our lives? To fix the way Emily had sided with her, time and time again? I didn't know. I wasn't sure if I could fix it. I walked over to the window and looked outside, the cold night air pressing against the glass. I felt like I was in the middle of a storm, caught between what I wanted and what I needed. The thing was, it wasn't just Rachel. It was Emily. It was the way she had let this happen, how she had allowed me to be pushed to the edge, how she had never once fought for me, for the respect I deserved. I knew this wasn't just about a few bad decisions. This was about a pattern that had been going on for far too long. I finally texted back. I'm done being the one who's always apologizing. I can't keep doing this. Before I could even think about it, the phone rang. Emily's name flashed across the screen. I took a deep breath and hit answer, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hello?" I said, my voice shaky, but I couldn't help it. "Please, can we just talk?" Her voice was softer now, a little broken. "I know you're hurt. I'm hurt too. I don't know how we got here, but I want to fix this. I love you." I could hear the desperation in her voice, but I didn't feel the same way. "Love isn't enough, Emily," I said, my voice firm. "Love isn't enough when you can't even respect me. When you let Rachel walk all over me. When you let her destroy everything we've built." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I never meant for it to get this bad." "But it did," I said, a lump forming in my throat. "It's not just about Rachel. It's about us, Emily. About how you've always put her before me. About how you've allowed everything to go so far that I don't even recognize the person I've become in this relationship. I've been the one making excuses for you, for her, for everything." I could feel the weight of every word I was saying, every truth I had been hiding, pouring out in a way I hadn't expected. But once it was out there, it couldn't be taken back. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can keep fighting for someone who doesn't fight for me." I heard Emily's breath catch on the other end of the line. "What are you saying? Are you saying it's over?" I didn't know how to answer that. I didn't know what was left to say. "I'm saying I need to figure out what's best for me," I replied quietly, my voice steady. "And right now, that's not us. I can't keep pretending like everything is fine when it's not." There was a long pause, longer than any silence I had ever experienced. It felt like the world was holding its breath, waiting for me to say something, to make it all better. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. "Goodbye, Emily," I said, my heart pounding in my chest. And with that, I hung up the phone. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, but it was also the easiest, and just like that, everything had changed. The silence that followed the call was deafening. It was like the air in the room had thickened, pressing down on me with a weight I couldn't escape. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was no noise, no arguments, no unresolved tension hanging between Emily and me. Just stillness. I sat there on the couch, the phone still resting in my hand, staring at the screen as though somehow the answer I'd just given her would magically change if I looked long enough. But it wouldn't. I had already made the decision. It was over. For the first time in months, I wasn't consumed by the noise of it all. No Rachel, no Emily, no wedding plans or family arguments. I didn't have to fight for attention or for someone to see me as more than just an accessory in their lives. I could breathe again. The next few days felt almost surreal. I spent the time alone, moving through my house like a stranger. There were still remnants of the life I thought I was going to build with Emily. Her makeup bag still sitting on the bathroom counter, the half-assembled wedding centerpiece gathering dust in the corner of the living room. Everywhere I looked, there were traces of what was supposed to be, but it was gone now. The life we were supposed to have together was slipping through my fingers, like sand in the wind. I decided to focus on the things I could control. I started cleaning up around the house, rearranging furniture, throwing out old clutter. I painted the walls in the living room, a fresh coat of blue that made the space feel like mine again. Truly mine. It felt like I was reclaiming pieces of myself I had lost, I even adopted a dog, a small, scruffy rescue with big brown eyes and a playful attitude. I wasn't sure why, but it felt right. It felt like a sign, like I was starting over. I named him Max, and in a way, Max became my symbol of starting fresh, of learning to love myself again. The days bled into each other. I found a strange peace in the routine. I woke up when I wanted to, ate what I wanted, watched whatever I felt like without worrying about anyone else's expectations. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't exciting, but it was mine. But as the weeks passed, Emily's absence started to settle deeper. At first, I didn't miss her. I was angry, confused, relieved, but the loneliness crept in. It wasn't the kind of loneliness that had come with being surrounded by people who didn't see me. It was quieter, deeper. It was the ache of something lost, something I wasn't sure I was ever going to get back. I missed the small things. The way Emily would steal my hoodies, the way we'd laugh over the smallest, stupidest things. And then I'd remind myself, this wasn't the way it was supposed to be. I shouldn't be missing those things. I shouldn't have to mourn the relationship I had sacrificed so much for. Still, I kept busy. I spent more time at work. I took long walks with Max. I started writing again, something I hadn't done in years, but something about the quiet of the house made my mind open up in ways it hadn't before. The words came easier now. I wrote about everything, the pain, the betrayal, the feeling of being unseen, unheard. And with every word, I felt a little bit more like myself again. And then, on the third week of this new normal, I got a message from Sarah. It was the first real communication I'd had from anyone in weeks, and it hit me harder than I expected. I don't know if you're ready for this, but Emily's been reaching out to everyone. She's devastated. She's been crying nonstop. She wants to talk, but she's too scared you won't listen. I'm just telling you this because I think she needs you to hear her out. I stared at the message, my heart thumping in my chest. Emily. Devastated. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to feel. Part of me wanted to pick up the phone, to hear her out, to see if there was a chance to fix things. But another part of me felt nothing but exhaustion. Exhaustion from the months of tension, the endless trying, the years of me always being the one who bent to keep the peace. For the first time, I wasn't sure what I wanted. I had given everything and still I was left alone. I thought about calling her. I thought about hearing her voice again. But then I looked at Max, curled up on the couch, his eyes full of quiet trust. He didn't judge me. He didn't demand anything from me. And in that moment I realized something. I had been alone in a crowd for so long. Maybe being alone for once was exactly what I needed. And just like that, I made my decision. I wasn't going to reach out. I wasn't going to fall into the trap of waiting for her to come back. I had my life now. I had my peace. I wasn't sure what the future would hold, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. I didn't have to make her understand. I didn't have to beg for her love. I was enough on my own. And that, for now, was enough. The days stretched on, and life started to settle into something that felt almost normal. At least as normal as it could be. I woke up every day with a sense of purpose, but also with a quiet weight I couldn't ignore. There was still the nagging feeling of Emily's absence, but it wasn't the kind of ache that twisted my insides anymore. It was just a part of the silence, a reminder of what I had let go. Max was my constant companion, his wagging tail and big brown eyes pulling me out of my head whenever the loneliness crept in. I spent my evenings taking him for walks through the neighborhood, feeling the cool air against my skin and the steady rhythm of my footsteps guiding me forward. There was something healing about it, something that felt like the universe was slowly nudging me back to the man I was before all of this chaos. But then, one afternoon, something unexpected happened. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when I saw the notification pop up. Emily's name. New message. My heart skipped. For a moment, I froze. The last time I'd heard from her, I had shut the door on everything. My thumb hovered over the message, and I took a deep breath. Part of me wanted to delete it, move on, erase it from my life. But another part of me wanted to know what she had to say. So, I opened it. I don't know how to start this. I've made a mess of everything. I know I can't fix it, but I want you to know that I'm sorry. For everything. For not seeing you. For choosing Rachel over you. I've been wrong, and I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just need you to know that I've learned, even if it's too late. I stared at the words for a long time. There it was, the apology I had waited for, the one I had never gotten, the one that came too little, too late. I read it over and over again, my mind racing. But as much as part of me wanted to feel relieved, to feel like this was my validation, it didn't give me the closure I needed. The words were empty, like a hollow echo of the things I'd been begging for. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I just felt tired. I knew what I needed to do now. I didn't owe her anything. Not anymore. I grabbed my phone, drafted a simple response, and hit send. I hope you find the peace you're looking for, Emily, but I'm done now. For both our sakes, it wasn't a grand gesture. There was no dramatic closure, no tear-filled confrontation. But it was enough. The weight I had been carrying for so long lifted with that single message. I wasn't waiting for her anymore. I wasn't waiting for anyone to fix me, to validate my feelings, to make me feel like I mattered. I had already started rebuilding. I had already started healing. That evening, as I sat in the living room with Max curled up at my feet, I realized something. I had learned to live for myself again, to trust myself again, to understand that I was worth the effort, worth the boundaries I'd fought so hard to establish. I was no longer the guy who waited for people to notice him. I was the guy who noticed himself, and that was all I needed. My home, my life, my rules. And this time, I was the one in control. I turned the TV on, sat back, and took a deep breath. For the first time in months, I felt like I could finally exhale. There was no more waiting, no more uncertainty, just peace. And that was enough.